Welcome to the Alcohol Free Life podcast, brought to you by thesoberclub.com. I'm Janey Grace. This is for you if you've quit the booze or you'd like to, or maybe you're just sober curious. I'll bring you tips and motivation without any judgment, and there'll be inspiration from experts, quit-lit authors, and sober heroes. Hi, and welcome to the podcast. I hope you're well. I thought this week, I've had quite a lot of questions come in because, well, lots of people are doing Sober October. So as it's the last week or, pretty much coming to the end, I thought we'd just do a little bit of a reminder of some basics because, even for people who've been sober for ages, sometimes some of these kind of queries and questions pop up. And it doesn't hurt, I don't think, to be reminded of some of the stuff that we learn in the early weeks, or maybe for some people it's all completely new, because it's all about self-care, isn't it, really, and upgrading and leveling up and all of that. So we had our sober coach training last weekend. It was so great to be in a room with like-minded people and people who are enthusiastic about their sobriety. It's just really super cool, and I'm very excited to see what they create, what they end up doing. Some will end up as sober coaches, of course. Some will just use all the various skills and techniques and the kind of personal transformation stuff to support their own well-being, or take into some other work. I don't know, but anyway, it was great. It's a real boost, a real energy boost to be around like-minded people. And if that's something you haven't got going on, then honestly consider it, because really it's just amazing to be connected. So I'm just going to share a bunch of stuff with you today. Really, it means you just get my voice, which sorry about that, but hopefully there'll be something that you can kind of take away from this, whatever stage you're at. Just before I get into it all, just a reminder of some events that are coming up. So just to mention the coach training, if that is something that you think at some point in the future you might be interested in. You don't have to already be a coach. We do have a requirement that you are alcohol free and that you do know what it means to have been drinking more than you want to. So the training it's not for you if you're someone who thinks that alcohol's fine and you can just, encourage people to moderate. We want this to be for people who ultimately their goal is to spread awareness that life is better without alcohol, and that we can focus on creating that life we don't need to escape from. So it's very much around the positive well-being approach. So if it is something that interests you, let's have a chat. That's the best way to find out if it's right for you. And we've got a webinar as well, a free webinar on Monday, 24th of November. So you're welcome to register for that. Just go to thesoberclub.com and click on events, and you'll see the little icon there, explore a career as a sober coach. So come on down and register for that if it interests you at all. Our next training starts at the end of January 2026. Tiny groups, so get in quick if it's something you might be interested in. Before that, I'm going to be in Glasgow. Looking forward to going back to Glasgow. My goodness, I've not been to Glasgow since the Wham tour. God, I bet it's changed. So going to be part of the Ayewrite Festival in Glasgow, talking about the new edition, the updated edition of Happy, Healthy, Sober, which technically comes out in December. But I'm going to be doing this literary festival on Sunday, the 9th of November at the Mitchell Library. So again, if you go to thesoberclub.com, click on events, you can click on tickets for that. I don't think it's very expensive. It's Sunday, 9th of November. I think it's like lunchtime, something like that. So it'd be fantastic to meet you at that. And then, this weekend, I'm doing a retreat. And then moving into December, Monday, December the 8th, we've got our Sober Club Christmas meetup, if you like, coaches reunion, live podcast recording with special guest Andy Rammage. That's going to be a great one. Do get tickets for that if you can. I know it's a Monday and all, but come if you can, because as I said, that connection piece, it's just so important, really is. And I forgot family constellations. If we get enough people to run a workshop, we'll be doing that on Saturday, the 29th of November. So that's in Hertfordshire. it's not the easiest to describe, have a look at my website and have a read of some of the info, or you're welcome to drop me a message and we can have a chat. But it'd be lovely to see you at Constellations as well, which, as I'm sure you've heard me say many times, can be literally life-changing. And don't forget, join us in the Sober Club. It honestly is amazing for connection. It's very low cost. Just join us for a month. It's under 20 quid. It's a lot less than you're going to spend on booze, that's for sure. And if you don't like it, then, if it's not for you, then leave. But it's all about the cheerleading and the support and the connection and the incredible, huge archive of well-being stuff that's in there that you can't get anywhere else. It's exclusive content to us, and there's some really powerful stuff. So please join us if you can. So I'm going to start with a few questions. These are questions that I've been asked either by one-to-one clients or in the Sober Club. They're frequently asked questions, really. But I'm just going to share off the top of my head my thoughts on these, and I'd love to know your response. Please drop me a message, follow me on social media at Janey Grace, or drop me an email. And because I'd love to know your answer, because I'm not the only one with the answers. I'm just going to share with you what's worked for me or what I often share as a coach. But you might have some fabulous tips up your sleeve. So please drop me a message. It'd be great to hear them, and I'll name check you for sure. So let's start with this one. It's a very common question that I get asked, and that is, when I first quit alcohol, how am I going to deal with the cravings? It was definitely something that worried me, because I knew that the cravings, in inverted commas, felt like a voice in my head that were kind of forcing me to go do something. It was a very strange feeling now I think back. But the reality is, cravings are just thoughts. They are very persistent thoughts, for sure, but they are just thoughts. I mean, unless, of course, you are clinically dependent, you've been drinking a huge amount of alcohol, and then there'll be a period of time where the alcohol has to leave the body, and there will be a physiological craving, in inverted commas, which is why it's dangerous to stop suddenly if you are clinically dependent. As you know, as a coach and within the Sober Club, the work is for people who are not at rock bottom, with for people who are grey area drinkers, as the term sometimes goes. They're drinking more than they want to, but they're functioning. It's not dangerous for them to stop drinking. But for the average person, then, cravings, it's important to remember, it feels as though it's a physiological craving, but actually it's just a thought. And what we need to do is recognize that it's temporary. It's just a thought. And just like any other thought, we can notice it, we can acknowledge it, and we can let it pass by, because it will pass. So sometimes people use that expression, surf the urge, ride over it. And as you do so, play that tape forward, another expression you've heard a million times. Imagine the future. Imagine all the benefits from choosing not to drink. If it works for you, go back to the pain point. Take yourself back in your mind to the last, really hideous occasion that you never wish to repeat, linked to alcohol, because we've all got one. Trust me, we've all got one of those moments that we never want to go back to. Oh my God, hideous. So, but if it works for you, go backwards just for a second to that pain point to remind yourself, I do not want to be there ever again. And then play that tape forward and just visualize how great it's going to be when you're free, when you're completely free from the alcohol trap. Really try and focus on the good that's coming. That I have this rule. I won't let anyone use the phrase give up. You are not giving up anything, you're only gaining. So play that tape forward and focus on everything you're going to be gaining. Look forward to something. When you get a craving, it's a good idea to check with the physiological stuff. So, for example, we know the HALT acronym, HALT. Check in with yourself. Is it actually that I'm hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? Now, hunger, the first one, is so often the case. I remember back, often I would, be craving, in inverted commas, a large glass of wine. But in reality, I was just hungry. I just needed nutrients, not poison, in fact, at all. So check in with yourself. And if you're hungry, eat really good food. It's so critical. Am I angry? Well, go and punch a cushion or go for a run. Am I lonely? Loneliness can happen even if you're with other people, right? That's why connection with like-minded people is so important. Or am I tired? Because often in the early weeks of sobriety, you can feel exhausted. So have a nap. Usually the cravings are masking something else, something that's really going on. Um, so if you're trying to surf the urge, as it were, if you're trying to notice it, it's difficult to think your way out of a craving. It's much better to actually do something else. So go for a walk, call someone up, go on the sober club if you're a member, change your environment, use one of your resources. I always tell clients, have resources. What is it you like to do? How can you spend your time, even if it's just 15, 20 minutes? Just go and do something, go and do a different activity so that you're focused on something else other than putting alcohol in. And of course, you know, just remember that nobody ever woke up sober and then felt regret. We only ever feel pleased with ourselves. Just back on what I said at the beginning of this little section, though, about it not being a physiological reaction. Of course, there is a school of thought that says when your brain chemistry is out of whack, that will impact too on your cravings. So because everything is, the brain chemistry is usually out of whack in the first few weeks. And so if you are really lacking in dopamine, serotonin, and all the other important brain chemicals, then yeah, that's going to make it worse too. So in order to deal with that, you've heard me say 1,000 times, you've got to get the nutrition piece right. That's where it really helps if you work with a coach or if you become involved in the Sober Club and really dive deep into our archive portal, where we've got a whole load of content around how you can really do that nutrition piece properly, because it's so key. The other question that I get asked sometimes is, what do I do with this free time? Now, for those of us that feel as though we don't have enough hours in the day, actually the extra time you gain from being sober feels like an absolute gift. But there are people, of course, for whom the free time sort of stretches out before them and they're really not quite sure what to do with it to start with. And it is a thing. You do free up time when you're not drinking. So I think if that's something that is a concern for you, just keep reminding yourself you're not losing anything, you're gaining, and you're actually gaining a life. So within that, what is it that you want? Become curious about who you are when you're not drowning, everything with toxic liquid. Just become curious about what it is you want to do. Become curious about what activities you might want to add in, to your life. Are there hobbies that you used to have when you were a kid, maybe, that you want to reinstate? We've got Sober Club members who do all kinds of things. They take up writing, even though they never thought they were a writer. I've got one woman who does this amazing weaving thing. It's beautiful. And then others who kind of remember that when they were a kid, they used to play the flute. So they go and grab it from the attic or whatever it might be for you. Just become curious about what you can do with that time. Because sometimes people discover a whole new purpose and it's absolutely magical. And then, of course, the question that gets asked a lot is, how will I handle social situations? How will I handle people asking why I'm not drinking? So I love the expression, or the sentence, if you like, no. No is a complete sentence. If someone asks you to go to a social occasion that you don't want to go to, no is enough. It really is. If you want to stay in, that's it. You don't need to owe anyone an explanation. If you don't want to go out, if it feels too much for you, stay home. But having said that, monitor what's really going on. Don't become isolated for the sake of, fear. This is different for everyone, but as a general rule, if you do your prep, if you get connected, if you start focusing on everything you're gaining, then getting out and about doesn't feel quite so hard if you do your prep. And this is what it all comes down to. Prep what you are going to say to other people. I always recommend giving a heads up. So dropping people a text or an email or whatever, and just let them know, oh, by the way, I'm not drinking tonight. and you can then follow that up with a reason if you want to. No need to, but if you want to give a reason, you can. And that's where you can fib, if you like. I'm on antibiotics, whatever it might be. Or you can tell a version of the truth and you can say, I'm a lot less anxious without alcohol. I mean, seriously, which one of your friends really would rather prefer you anxious? It's crazy. But it's entirely up to you. But I would say a minimum amount, not a lot. Just say one line. And then importantly, add that you're cool with your alcohol-free drink or whatever, so that your people-pleasing friends and your sober-shaming friends don't feel the need to feel sorry for you. That's really key, actually. Remember that when other people have a problem with you not drinking, it will probably be because of their problem drinking. You're shining a light on their behavior. So rather than feel offended and upset and on the back foot, in a way, just be grateful that you're sorting this out, whether they are or not. But it's not your job to change them or to evangelize to them. Just you do you. You know that expression, don't you? You do you. And the reality is, real friends will actually care about you and what's going on in your life, not what's in your glass. They'll kind of grow with you. They may not quit alcohol, by the way, but they will respect your decision. I've had clients who've said to me, my friends found it quite tricky at first, but they very quickly saw that I meant what I said. I said I wasn't drinking. I didn't drink. I chose an alcohol-free drink when we went out. I stuck to, what I'd agreed. It didn't change anything. I left early. So that's a good tip, actually, because sometimes people who are drinking, they get terribly boring when they're drunk. I left early, but over time, they just got used to that's who I was now. And then when they invite me to their house or whatever, they buy a bottle of alcohol-free fizz for me or whatever. So those friends who care about you, they will grow with you. They'll kind of blossom with you, despite not necessarily quitting themselves. And the interesting thing is the ones that don't, if you see what I mean, they naturally fall away. You don't tend to have a big scene or a big showdown. They just kind of disappear because they were really only ever drinking buddies. And when you're no longer drinking alcohol with them, there's not much left to the friendship. The reality is, as we've said so many times on this podcast, it's utterly crazy that you wouldn't be able to have a good time with people simply because of what you're putting in your mouth. I mean, it's literally crazy. So, see that for what it is and don't let the fact that you're not drinking alcohol stop you from enjoying a social occasion. Do prep ahead as to what will be in your glass, though. Ring the venue, find out what they've got. If they don't have decent grown up alcohol-free drinks, we're not talking a sugary cola and orange juice here and lemonade. We're talking proper grown up alcohol-free drinks. They should be everywhere now, just like you would expect vegan food. If you're vegan, it would be crazy for most establishments not to have anything on offer. So, challenge them if they don't. Then the next question that comes up a lot is, what am I going to do if I slip up? What will happen if it goes wrong? And, this is a big question because, of course, as someone who is nearly 8 years sober and knowing that it's the best thing I've ever done, my only regret is not doing this sooner. So, of course, I don't want to wax lyrical about how great it is to relapse because I did that way too many times for way too many years. And for you, I would love it if you could get to that point quicker. But the reality is, it is part of the deal, usually. Most people do end up going around the block a few times. It would be fantastic if you didn't have to. So please don't take that as an instruction. But the reality is, if you do slip up, don't beat yourself up. Don't beat yourself up. You don't. It doesn't erase your progress. You do, though, need to look at what went wrong. So it's about the direction you're headed in. If you slip up, in inverted commas, start drinking again and think, well, this is fantastic, I love it, well, you're clearly not ready to quit and, knock yourself out. But what tends to happen is people will they'll relapse in inverted commas, they'll slip up, and then they'll usually feel absolutely terrible, usually berate themselves, hate the experience, feel really ill, and then they've got to kind of look at what triggered it, what started it. And it's a real gift to be able to be honest with yourself and be able to look at what actually went wrong in inverted commas. Very often, it's something that you can track down to a series of thoughts and a lack of self-care. It's almost always that people look back and they go, well, actually, now I think about it, I hadn't eaten well, or I'd been allowing myself to get super stressed about X and Y, or I hadn't planned ahead and I hadn't got any alcohol-free drinks and there was nothing to drink. So be really honest with yourself. What was the trigger? What could you have done differently? And um, it's a gift sometimes because it can be the final kind of nail in the coffin, as you like, if you like, the final thing that makes you realize, so the rebellious part of me thought that might be a good idea. You know what? It really isn't. But please don't take that whole conversation that I've just, or that whole um, paragraph I've just told you there as meaning it's a good idea. It really isn't. If you're, if you've had your last day one, let's make that your last day one, right? Because the reality is every time you do this, it is a little bit harder every time. So let's make your last day one your last forever and focus only on what you're gaining, because I can absolutely assure you, you will gain nothing from going back to drinking alcohol. Absolutely nothing. The next question is, when will I start to feel better? Really a how long is a piece of string question, of course. But this is one that I'm going to go into a lot more detail on. I wrote a blog post on Substack this week called Your Sober Boost, 7 Ways to Beat the Flatness and Reignite Your Momentum. So it links with this question. So the when will I begin to feel better is, that really is a how long is a piece of string. In my experience, the first few weeks are the hardest, but if you put the work in, it doesn't have to be. If you actually do your prep, really properly do your prep, and really do eat well, and really do get connected and get your self-care toolkit in place, you should start to feel better, within 4 weeks. You should. And, by 3 months, I'd be hoping you'd be never wanting to go back to where you were. But I can't give you that as a prescription. But a client asked me recently, where is the pink cloud that I hear about? I keep reading that people have this sense of euphoria, or they'll say, I had a brief sense of feeling really great, a little bit of euphoria, but it's gone now. I feel flat now. And, that lovely saying, it gets greater later. Have you heard that one? It does. It does. Play the long game. For the first few weeks of all of this, you're healing, you're recovering from your poor body is probably thinking, what's going on? I'm not having to deal with all those toxins that that I've been having to mop up. So there's some physical healing to be done. And then often in terms of your emotions, it can be an absolute emotional roller coaster for a good few weeks. But once you push through, things start to open up. You're literally detoxing from a substance that's been affecting every system in your body, physically and emotionally. So, it's bound to take a while, right? For anyone who works in holistic health and well-being, I always remember that naturopaths used to say to me, you really need to allow a month for every month you've had the problem, the illness. Oh my God, well, that would be a lot of months. And thankfully, it's not quite that way in terms of recovering from alcohol. But the point is, don't be, too impatient. And remember to notice the little wins. Don't be focused on the euphoria. Focus on the little wins. How does it feel to wake up sober, to feel as though your skin is a little clearer, to be able to count a bit more cash in your wallet, or, to be able to go off and drive and pick your kids up late at night without having to panic about having had a drink. I mean, the tiny things, the fact that you feel that you're just on it, you're more present, you're a kinder person. Just celebrate all those little wins because it's the little wins that add up. And then, really just be patient with yourself. Give yourself the same kind of patience that you'd give to a friend who was going through something tricky. Um, so so that's a few of the questions. Just bear in mind, the magic will happen outside of your comfort zone. Once you push through this, that's when the real living begins. So as I mentioned, the last one about being a little bit flat or feeling a little bit flat. Um, I'm just going to share some other thoughts with you on that because I think that's something that can happen to people even when they're much further down the line in sobriety, because it isn't really about the alcohol, is it? If you see what I mean. When people join the sober club, sometimes people join the sober club and they've been sober for 8 years because it's never only about the drinking. It's always about the holistic picture, isn't it? And leveling up and focusing on optimum health. And of course, that's got to be underpinned by sobriety. But once we're doing that piece, let's focus on the everything else. So I'm going to give you a few tips from the recent post that I did, your Sober Boost. Would you like to become an accredited sober coach? Have you quit drinking and found yourself looking for a new purpose? Thousands of people are searching for help to quit and live their best life without the booze. Our Sober Coach training gives you the tools, the confidence, and the community to support others. No experience needed, except knowing what it feels like to have drunk more than you wanted to. We start with 2 transformational in-person days. Then you join our coaches family with ongoing support and webinars to help you use your skills in ways that suit you. If you're already a coach or a therapist, this could be an in-demand extra string to your bow, or a whole new career opportunity as a Sober Club accredited coach. For more info, visit thesoberclub.com and click on the Become a Sober Coach menu item. So your Sober Boost then, 7 ways to beat the flatness and reignite your momentum. So obviously, this is especially helpful if I hope, if you're doing Sober October, you've got a few more days of it. Maybe you're a few weeks, few months, even years into your alcohol-free journey, but somehow things are feeling just a bit flat for you. The buzz has worn off, the novelty's faded. As Susan from Whole Sober often says, life's just got lifey, and you're wondering where the sparkle went. I'm often asked, why do I feel flat? Well, trust me, a drink will not be the answer. Flatness is part of life. It's actually, certainly in the early weeks, it's a sign that your brain is recalibrating. But please don't white knuckle your way through it all. Let's have a look at some practical ways, some reminders of how you can give yourself that sober boost. So number 1 then, flip the focus. As you've heard me say just about a million times, what are you gaining? Focus not on what you're giving up. There is nothing to give up. Focus on everything that you're gaining. Literally keep your focus there. With that, we know that expression, what you focus on, you get more of, right? So get your phone or get a piece of paper, make a list of 5 things that are, well, actually 20 benefits. Let's make it that. 20 benefits that have happened for you since you quit alcohol, or if you're early days, think of 5 that you're looking forward to. And it can include the big stuff and the little stuff. Maybe the sleep is better, you've got more energy, you show up differently for your kids or in a relationship, you've got less anxiety. You've obviously saved some money, that would have literally been peed away. You can remember a conversation. You're starting to get excited about things. Just this list is your gold, really. Read it, add to it, maybe even jot some things down and stick them in a jar. And then when you're feeling flat again, pull them out. I call them blessings. I encourage all my clients to jot down about 5 blessings daily, things that have happened, things that are occurring for you because you're choosing to be free from the alcohol trap. Number 2, I don't know if it's second on the list or if it should be first, but anyways, get connected. I mean, it's a game changer. Honestly, it's literally the thing that makes the difference. And so many clients say to me, I'm good because, my partner is supportive of me quitting alcohol. It's not the same. It's not the same as being part of a community, being part of a group where other people have literally been through the same thing. Some are ahead of you, maybe someone's behind you, but reading what other people are sharing, connecting, being able to, express how you're feeling and not be judged, and not have someone go, oh, well, you've done well, just have one. It's magical. That's honestly the reason I run the Sober Club, because I know that whatever stage you're at, whether you've been sober for 1 day or 8 years, there's always stuff going on in your life, and it's fantastic to be able to share it with people who just want to cheerlead you. There's a beauty in that. There's an absolute magic when people, you actually feel seen. You feel seen and heard, right? So do check in with the community that you're part of. Of course, I'd love you to join the Sober Club. It's very high value and very low cost, thesoberclub.com. But whatever works for you, just get connected. Don't try to do this on your own, right? Number 3 is feed your brain. It's not just about good nutrition. That is really key, but it's thinking of the nutrition that is going to help your brain chemistry, because now, your body, particularly if you've only just recently quit alcohol, your body has been dealing with, if you like, borrowed chemistry, and now it's got to sort it out. Now it's got to create dopamine, serotonin, GABA, and give it to you all in the right balance. And it's no longer having to spend all its time producing, the antitoxins, if you like, to mop up the alcohol. So to start with, things are very confusing. So make sure you tackle the basics, get the good nutrition. I mentioned that earlier. It's super important. And if sugar is a big thing for you, then make some healthy swaps. Again, if you join us in the Sober Club, we've got some amazing content in there around sugar swaps and how you can really focus on getting good fats, really good protein, just that really good balance of food. I know I say it a lot, but avoid artificial sweeteners. Seriously, devil's own work. Just don't go there. The next one is supplements. And again, this is different for everyone, but there's a few supplements that I genuinely believe that we can all benefit from. The right magnesium has to be the right magnesium blend. It's amazing for calming the nervous system, supporting your sleep, it helps reduce anxiety. On and on. Some B complexes are good, and I would think of a complex rather than just one specific B vitamin. Omega-3s are amazing for supporting your mood. L-glutamine, lots of people talk about that for helping with cravings. Vitamin D, I really believe, if you're in the UK, we really, really need it. I think, we're many of us are really lacking in vitamin D. It's worth getting a test to find out if you are. If you go to the soberclub.com, click on the blog post there on supplements for sobriety, and use the little link that's there to click through to the brand that I recommend. If you use my link, then for absolute transparency, a little bit of cash goes into the Sober Club Give Back Fund, which is our fund for people who can no longer afford to be part of the group, or for emergency coaching. So we very much appreciate it if you were willing to click that link. It happens to be the best supplements you'll find. So of course, I'd appreciate if you do that, or go to the show notes for this podcast and you'll see that as well. If you can go and see a nutritionist, if you can have a tailored approach, even better. But as a general rule, I think we all need vitamin C, vitamin D, definitely magnesium. And then you can have a think around some of the others, whether or not you need omega-3s, whether you need selenium. There's a few other things you might want to add in. Think about your mindset, mind your own mindset, and ask yourself, what is the story that I'm telling myself? What's the narrative that's always running in my head? If that narrative is around feeling deprived and, everyone else is doing well and having fun and, it's so unfair for me, just flip it, literally flip it. And instead of that, I'm missing out, change it to, I'm making a choice. I'm making a choice that is really good for me. Instead of this is so hard, change it to, it's getting easier every day and I'm getting stronger and I'm starting to feel better. And instead of, I can't drink, change it to, I choose not to drink. It's not for me. Literally reframe your thoughts, because, your words shape your reality. Okay, so choose the ones that empower you, even if to start with, it's a little bit of a case of fake it till you make it, as it were. Create it till you make it. It's a better way of putting it. Um, Moving your body, that's an important one. And, I don't think that means you have to join a gym or run a marathon, but getting some movement just literally shifts that energy and releases some endorphins. So even if it's a walk, and I do get that when you are feeling flat, movement feels like the last thing you want to do. I totally get that. But do it anyway. If it's 5 minutes, just do it. Put a track on, dance in your kitchen, go for a quick walk, do some stretches. In the Sober Club in our member portal, we've got a wonderful exclusive session with a shaman, Yakov Darling Khan, who does this sensational little movement medicine, he calls it. It's 15 minutes and oh man, is it inspirational. And then just check in with content that inspires you. So whatever that is for you, obviously, if you're a Sober Club member, come on down and check out the portal that we have, the archives that we have, because there's everything there. There's expert sessions, resources, inspiration. There's just so much there. This podcast, there are, what is it, 400 episodes or something? Crazy. Do what inspires you. Find something that lifts your spirits so that you start to remember why you got started down this path, and it just reminds you of where you're headed. And, do a little date with yourself. If you're a fan of Julia Cameron and morning pages, she calls it journaling, writing morning pages. Julia Cameron is the author of a book called The Artist's Way. And really what that book is proposing is that you have what she calls an artist date. That simply means set aside time for yourself, but literally for you. So, this doesn't mean isolation. This means take some time for you. So whether you're going to, go for a walk or go to a museum or whatever it might be, it's for you. It's a little date with yourself. And it's really key. It really makes a difference when you schedule that time in. So there's a few suggestions. Flatness, it's not about meaning that you're failing or that something's wrong. It's just you're in that sort of middle bit, that kind of messy bit sometimes. And that can be where the real transformation happens because, you feel flat when you're drinking as well. Let's not forget that. But in this flatness, as it were, when you're sober, when you've chosen to be alcohol free, when you're genuinely focusing on living your best life moving forward, when you're free from the alcohol trap, the flat periods mean that you can build resistance. You can use that slight discomfort, if you like, to push through, to surf the urge, to become more resilient, to focus on gratitude, to focus on those little things that make a difference and start to find out who you really are. Even when the chips are a bit down, who are you really? That's how you create a life that you don't need to numb out from. And, God knows everyone gets flat sometimes, everyone. So, it's not about always being high. It's about knowing how to come back to that sort of balance point. So just back on the connection point, it is key. Honestly, it is. And if you can get to meet people in person, well, it's a game changer. So have a think about some of the stuff that we've got coming up in the Sober Club. Working backwards, that Christmas social, our live podcast recording with Andy Rammage. That's Monday, 8th of December at Club Soda in London. Come if you can. Go to thesoberclub.com, click on events or check out the show notes. And then before that, Family Constellations, Systemic Constellations, it's sometimes called. It's a one-day workshop in Hertfordshire, 29th of November. Before that, I'm going to be in Glasgow on November the 9th. And if you're interested in being or training to be a sober coach, even if it's just to lay the foundations for yourself, then Monday, 24th of November, we've got a free webinar. So I hope some of that's helpful. Have a think. Is there anything from this list that is a bit of a takeaway for you? Drop me a message. You can follow me on social media at Janey Lee Grace. But whatever you do, carry on doing what you're doing. If you've been doing Sober October, let me set you a new challenge. Come on, take it through to the end of January. Then you're really going to feel different. Don't forget that lovely phrase, it gets greater later. It's probably pretty good now, but gets even better. So you know where to find me, at Janey Lee Grace. You know where to find us in the Sober Club, thesoberclub.com, and reach out if you're struggling. Honestly, if none of this stuff I've said resonates, and you do not want to connect, and you don't know how to do any of the other stuff, at the very least, tell someone you're quitting. Hold yourself accountable just to that one bit. Tell someone you're doing this. You can absolutely reach out for me. I promise I'll reply if I get your message. You know, it's a case of don't do this alone. Honestly, tell someone you're doing it. You're worth it. Thank you for listening to the Alcohol Free Life podcast, brought to you by the Sober Club. Please rate and review. And if you want support, accountability and inspiration, and you want to live your best life without the booze, check out thesoberclub.com.